Hello and welcome back. And since it is the month of witches, vampires and posting of skeleton related memes, I've decided to review something suitably spooky. That being the survival horror / hobo punching simulator, Condemned 2. And if you're wondering why I'm reviewing the second game and not the first one, it's because this is the one I own. In a dark and gloomy city filled with crime, poverty and violence, insert your own punchline here, you play as Ethan Thomas, once a forensic detective that was framed for a crime he didn't commit. But instead of joining the A-Team, he decided to become an alcoholic hobo, and now kind of looks like Norman Reedus if he went past his sell-by date. However, he's temporarily brought back onto the force to help investigate the murder of a man who helped him track down the serial killer in the first game. And after investigating the crime scene, he's chased down by a bunch of homeless and gang members and takes a detour through a not-so-abandoned exploding doll factory run by some crazy Harley Quinn cosplayer. He then has to investigate the murder of the mayor in a museum and then escapes said museum after he gets raided by a bunch of more homeless people. And finds out that the two people were murdered by the serial killer from the first game that's still alive somehow. He then heads off to a cabin in the woods owned by the first victim, and after getting chased around by a rabid bear, disposing of a bunch of bombs, and having a gunfight with a SWAT team, he then learns the truth. Turns out all these events are being orchestrated by a secret cult called the Oro, who has been setting up sonic devices throughout the city to slowly drive the inhabitants insane. And they also have implanted devices in their throats to give them Black Canary scream powers. And that Ethan Thomas is some sort of prophesied chosen one by the cult, who has these sonic powers naturally. After these events, Ethan then heads off to try and interrogate the serial killer that goes horribly wrong, and then heads off after one of the cult members in an abandoned theatre. He then learns from that cult member the location of the cult's secret base, underneath the city scrapyard. He defeats some of the cult's members, blows up the base, and then escapes. And cue the ending with a bunch of cutscenes that bait a sequel that will probably never happen. That's 2 games in a row that I've reviewed that have done that. This game is technically a third-person shooter, and I say technically as, while you do get a gun and some ammunition in the game at some points, I say it only comprises about a third of the gameplay time at most. Instead, you spend the majority of the game fighting cult members, hobos, and the mutated abominations, using either just your fists or whatever you can pick up and beat them to death with. And there's quite a lot of detail put into the combat, such as using the left and right trigger to hit enemies from the left or the right respectively, holding down both triggers to block, using the right bumper to throw objects you're holding, using the left bumper to sprint, which apparently Ethan couldn't do in the first game, and pressing down on the right analog stick to kick them and break their guard. And when you do get to the gun combat, Ethan isn't exactly the most steady of shots, as his long-term drinking problem has given him a bad case of the shakes, which you can alleviate by swigging down bottles of alcohol scattered throughout the levels, making this one of the few games where drinking alcohol is not only a benefit but seemingly has no downside, in the gameplay anyway. The levels are mostly linear, with a few bits of exploration of side objectives to do. There are also forensic investigation sequences where you look at a crime scene and then answer questions about what you think happened. And it doesn't really matter or hinder the gameplay progress if you get the questions wrong or don't do all the side objectives, as the only real impact it has is decreasing your score on the level and thus making you have less perks throughout the game. Oh, and right at the end of the game Ethan gets sound power so he can shout people to death like he's the fucking Dragonborn. The graphics are decent for the time, and they respectably convey the game's grim and dingy feel that very much embodies the late 2000s. And it doesn't shy away from violence and viscera. And as for the music, well, you say music, but I hesitate to call this game's soundtrack music, with one exception at the beginning of the intro. Most of the game's soundtrack is more sort of soundscapes, although I do think this is the right choice as it helps convey the game's sinister, eerie, dingy feel throughout the game. And the one song it does have is this sort of grungy electro rock, which, while not personally a fan, I do think is kind of fitting for the game. This game's quite good at what it tries to be. The story is interesting, although it does go a bit off the rails by the end. The gameplay is unique considering the genre it is. And the music and graphics help convey the feel of the game. And the graphics and music do a good job at conveying the atmosphere it tries to go for. And I'd say it's worth giving a play if you're in a spooky or punchy mood. Although from what I've heard, people seem to prefer the first game over this one, so maybe I'll review that at some point. Well, that's all from me. See you guys. Oh, hi Johnny. How's that investigation into that person I totally don't know about?
Yeah, about that. I had a sneaking suspicion you weren't being honest with me last time. So, I'm gonna get some answers by beating you with this brick until you stop telling the truth.
Wait!